district participation in health insurance affiliation.
I'll open and then Brad, you can kind of fill in a little bit. The district's been in the Lakeway affiliation for several decades. Obviously, we're in a place with as many lives as our plan. We can and probably should be self-insured. This is a process that we started 5 years ago. Problem up until now is our fund balances were not in a place where we would be able to go out on our own and have some of that carryover for the 2 or 3 months during that transition. We've had very successful experience here over the last 3 years. The move to Blue Cross Blue Shield, which was precipitated by Way+District 210 and worked with some insurance nearly 4 or 5 years ago, has put the affiliation as well as Lincoln Way in a much better place. And then we believe it's time for us to go out on our own, manage our own insurance, be fully self-insured, and make our own decisions. And Brad put together the memo, the recommendation for the different reasons. Brad, if you want to hit a couple of highlights, and then we can answer any questions that the board might have.
Yes, thank you. I'd only highlight a couple of things. First, for the group, the size of our group, we would need to have about $3 to $4 million in reserves. We currently have almost $8 million. So we have plenty of reserves to go ahead and move out on our own. And you'll notice in the memo, we drew up several issues we want to make sure are clarified. So this is an intent to withdraw, so we would be working with the trust to clarify that. One, of course, the biggest issue on the table would be the way we read the bylaws. The $8 million we have would be ours to be brought out, but we certainly want to clarify that and solidify all that before we make any final determination to actually withdraw from the trust. So you saw the list of criteria. We would want them to give us that positive assurance that they read the agreement the same, and then that would be mutual cooperation to withdraw.
Would going self-insured, would that put any more work on any of the district staff? Would we need to
Not really.
people around or anything?
No, I mean, it's going to require us to go ahead and, as we said in the memo, we would like to, for this transitional period, work with Stone Insurance, but we would have to, of course, hire our own consultant. Right now, the cooperative has one. The good thing with having our own is they'll be watching out just for us. Not that we, spend some times we're going to need to give and takes, and we had to get a little tough once in a while, but it'd be nice to be able to drive our own ship and go where we need to go with this health insurance.
The other factor, we'll be able to manage our own fund balances rather than pay a nominal fee to have someone else manage that for us. Our $7 million right now is being managed by a shortwood agency, and of course there's a fee for doing that. They're on our balance as part of Brad's salary. So that, while small, it does start to add up over time.
So is that the main benefit to this?
No, the main benefit is for us to have complete control of one, getting complete access of all of our history and claims and all of that, and also being able to run analysis to determine how should we structure our programs for the best of our employees and the district. So right now, we have one plan, and it's across the entire cooperative. You got two choices, take it or leave it. We need to be able to, at this day and age, there's things that have changed, we need to continue to change with that.
So more options for staff?
Yeah, we
You don't
don't
anticipate this
correct.
being?
Correct. That could benefit the staff and district in terms of expenditures based upon where people are in their life experience.
Yeah.
Probably what it's called the Lincoln Way area affiliations. I see it's Lockport Elementary School is where we're sending this. I mean, what is the affiliation? I mean, who's members of this?
There are several districts are members of this. Manhattan, Special Ed.
18.
There are 18 different districts. Vermont High School is still in there. At one time, New Atlantis 122 was there. They left, but there are several grade schools and special ed cooperatives that are part of this affiliation. So 18 different districts or organizations. We're the largest. Our money is subrogated and held separately. That was something they had done over 10 years ago, before Linda was
Yes.
part of it. So
Yeah.
our money is segregated, it's separate. Quite honestly, it was my first and second year as superintendent, so 6, 7 years ago, we tried to leave. We didn't have any fund balances, so we couldn't. And so now we've built them to the point where it's time to do that. So to answer your question, there are 18 different districts. They're all small. They need a cooperative to get the price benefits that we would not need even by ourselves.
Will our departure negatively affect all of that?
No, they still will have enough lives to continue to do what they need to do because of their pool.
But you don't think it's gonna impact us on negatively on pricing? We have enough lives here.
Correct.
Pricing is.
In fact, when we had done the analysis several years ago, Blue Cross Blue Shield came and met with just us and told us at the time, you don't need to do this. You guys can be completely on your own. You'll have the same pricing, except now you'll be able to pick from a menu of options. But as I said, our fund balances have continued to grow because we haven't had significant claims here over the last 3 years.
Do most large districts, or districts our size, do their own self-insurance?
Yes, Brad, you've got more experience in other districts. You've done this, you've done it on your own.
Every district I've been in has been self-insured, standalone.
Okay.
When you say reserves, are you talking about the money that's segregated there? Wasn't, that amount was not high enough for us to go on our own?
Correct.
And what's the minimum there?
Well,
About 4 million.
about 4 million, because it would have to be, they would want 2 or 3 months carry out. And our bills are typically about $800,000 a month. So when I started, we didn't have 2 months, we didn't have a month years ago. So our move to Blue Cross Blue Shield has helped grow this significantly over the last five years.
Is this gonna impact the contract, the teacher contract in any way?
No.
Maybe 1 degree removed, we talked about a insurance holiday. It's just taken into consideration with this reserve and everything else.
Correct.
And then far be it for me to ask the question, but what if we did have a situation where reserves fell below a certain situation? We have to fund that through what mechanism?
See, that's where the analysis and, well, STEM will come and help us do the analysis, but Brad and I have already started to look at that. You know, you'll have your stop gaps, stop loss gap, and what is that, 350,000?
Yeah, 300.
So,
Okay,
so let's say you have 10 of them. Yeah, sorry. Let's go ahead, Brad.
Well, okay, so we have multiple things here. So first off, we have an individual stop loss. So when any one individual exceeds $300,000, then we have a secondary insurance that steps in and pays. We also have an aggregate stop loss. And so once you hit that aggregate, then that would kick in. So that's what we have with affiliation right now. When we were on our own, we would structure it still the same way. We would have a specific individual stop loss and we'd have an aggregate stop loss. The 3 to 4 million is really twofold. It's one, cash flow, and second, you would structure our aggregate stop loss to make sure that we would no way ever cut through that more than a certain percentage, probably like 35-ish or something. That's where the consultants come in, but you would never get to the point where you would be coming back saying, we're broke and now we have to fund it. Now, absolute worst case scenario, if somehow that did happen, somebody
You said it would never happen.
well, between stop loss and aggregate insurance, the only way it would happen is with mismanagement. Can that happen? That could happen.
Mismanagement by whom?
By administration and the consultant.
By our.
By our administration and consultant, right.
Then what should we be asking for to ensure that mismanagement doesn't occur?
Well, one of the things would be is we can go ahead and on a monthly or quarterly basis, we'll now include that with our board packet reports. And we ought to also have the consultant give a report on an annual basis to the board, to the health of the fund and how things are going. So these would be the steps that the board would take to manage, just like you manage the large financial picture, we can incorporate management of this health insurance in the same manner.
So I think we incorporate those. Then on the on the insurance holiday that we're talking about in the budget, I believe this was something that was recurring for more than just this year.
This year
So
and
how much exactly were you budgeting for the holiday? So I mean, we need 4 to 5, right? So, I mean,
Yeah,
3 to 4.
Right.
We're at,
So we have budgeted for 2 holidays.
Well, budgeted for one,
budget,
5 cast
one
as
and
another.
5 cast,
Yeah,
exactly.
So one budget.
One is budgeted for in FY 2020, and that's it's 800,000 in total. Some of that's district, some of that, so it's about 600-ish district, the other is employee. The other is just into our 5-year financial forecast. We can certainly adjust and do whatever we need as we approach and as we begin to develop the 2021 budget. But that's what currently is in there. We're right now just over $7 million in reserve. So, we have more than almost double what we really need at this moment in time.
Is the consultant something that we would put out to an RFP, or is that just,
I think
Built into the process.
after we go through this process and we're established and stabilized, it's something that we'll do just like we do with our workers' comp, with our property casualty, where we would go to RFQ every 3 years. But I think in our familiarity and all the work that STEM has done for us, it would at least be Brad and I's recommendation to use them through this process, get everything set up. It's going to be through Blue Cross Blue Shield, and then after we're established, I think we will want to go back, just as we do with our other agencies, to make sure we're getting the best price. One of the interesting things with the education sector, we've had difficulty determining exactly what cost we're paying in fees to the affiliation. We won't have that challenge with STEM or when we go to bid in the future. The laws are different. The laws are different for the public sector and for education in terms of the reporting requirements, and that's been a frustration for us.
we currently have something with STUM, contract.
We do not.
Just using, relying on them.
We worked with them throughout the process when we were 4 years ago deliberating on going on our own. They're the ones that helped with our analysis and then brought Blue Cross Blue Shield to the table, and then we ended up staying with the affiliation. The entire affiliation at that time went to Blue Cross Blue Shield as a result of the work that was done.
just indulge me for a moment, just because I make sure I understand this. Who holds these reserves? Are they actually cash reserves? Are they some type of annuitized reserves, or how does that work?
Right, so Shoreward Agency manages that, but
And the Short agency is.
that's the consulting arm of the affiliation.
But they're primarily an insurance
They're,
agency?
right, and so they're primarily in CDs and money market.
And Shorewood Agency is out of where? Is that out of Shorewood,
Shorewood,
Illinois?
yes.
Okay. So it's a local firm that handles $7 million through an insurance agency.
No, it's like 23 million.
Okay, but 7 million of ours, I guess,
Right.
is what I'm primarily concerned.
Right.
Bart?
Well, I think the question is who's going to manage that?
Well, that's what the next question was. So then it moves out of there.
Moves out of there, rolls over onto our balance sheets, and we'll manage it under the board policy, just as every year annually you designate investments. So with the district investments, would primarily be with either the state of Illinois or the Illinois Liquid Asset Trust, or CDs or money market through Old Second. That's really the only vehicles we use.
That would be then become your fiduciary responsibility to ensure the return.
Right. So with 2 things, with either they'd have to be FDIC insured or board policy is 105 or 102% collateralization. And we verify that every month to make sure what collateralization we have.
Would we see the reporting then on a how regular basis of that?
Well, as far as cash goes, you'd see that every month. It would become
Can we
part
see
of
that
it.
now?
From the affiliation, I get a report every month. It's
So
not,
does the board see the affiliation?
Oh,
report?
no.
No. we're
No.
not right.
So that's what I'm asking. I'm looking for the changes so that, because you spooked me just a little bit when you said never, and then you threw up, but here's how it could happen.
right.
And so I wanted to talk about how it could happen and what we should be doing so that if all of a sudden there's a crack in the dam, we don't wait till the water is blowing all over. So the idea would be that that money would show up somewhere in our reports.
Right. So it's
Treasurer
good.
and- I would say the treasurer and investment.
Okay, so that's where we would be looking for it at.
Going to be on the, so as far as the cash goes, you'll see it invested and the balances on the treasurer's report. And then what we can do is, we can start out, we can do quarterly reporting. When we get that reporting right from Stone Insurance, so we have, the expense, the income. We can also have like how many people, a stop loss report, that kind of stuff. And then if that isn't sufficient, we could go to a monthly if we need it.
The risk on mismanagement. The risk on mismanagement, that would be no different changing from where it is now. I mean, there could be mismanagement.
Oh,
Where it currently
yeah.
is.
Right, I would say actually we would have more control and more oversight than we do now.
You just made my point though. We would have that
Yes.
control. Right now, we are a little bit exonerated from that process because there's another association or affiliation, cooperative, managing that. You're pushing that responsibility to us.
Correct.
In a much closer run.
Yeah, I think we always have the fiduciary.
I get it, but
Exactly.
but we literally like have no more covers.
So,
I think we should be making sure that it's in all the reports that we can monitor.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That
Exactly.
there
No, I agree
won't
with
be
everything
any
you're saying.
questions down the road where somebody says, well, where's this? And somebody says, well, you never asked for it. We'll be like, oh, kind of we did. Let's hit the rewind button.
So I think it would be helpful if we come back with, I think there's like how, kind of with the procedures and how we're gonna.
Yeah,
do this,
that's the next
How it's
step.
gonna be reported to the board.
Our first step was just to get approval to send the letter, just to say, hey, we're starting this process, here are the things we're gonna need. So I think every month, it's reasonable to provide an update on, here's where we're at in that process. So we'll just make that part of
That's
it.
why I asked you to indulge me.
Yep. No, we can certainly do
So
that.
just on that letter, there's 6 points on there. I don't think we're gonna have any issues on there, but what if they came back and didn't provide one of those 6 things? I mean, we have well, number one would be,
No, you can't.
but we still have time to remedy this through December.
Correct.
Remedy not getting, or work
Because
through
we gotta
with
get-
them these 6 items.
Correct.
corrective notice out prior to.
Yeah, that'll be part of the process, is to make sure all of these things are going to happen.
Is there an estimated cost savings, or, I mean, obviously, making this move will allow us to customize the insurance to our group needs individually. Is there an estimated cost savings on it?
As far as in the short term, we're not estimating any savings in the short term. However, we believe strongly that in the long run, we suspect lower administration costs, and we feel like we can better manage our plan through
Right.
different incentive or, because it's about employee behavioral, how they utilize, whether you go to urgent care versus emergency room, We didn't even have an emergency room deductible until just a few years ago, So these are the things we need to move forward with. It needs to be a win-win with employees, but at the same time, there's things we can do to help manage costs and still provide great benefits to employees.
And is that where Stum will come in?
Yes.
On the consulting side, kind of looking at what we have here, maybe where we can see some cost savings.
Right, and they have a broad knowledge of how the healthcare market is moving, how things should best be optimized.
Well, at a very minimum, we're going to eliminate one layer of cost.
What's that?
We're eliminating someone, a
Your
labor
hours.
cost, that, you know, there's a fee associated with it?
Well, I mean,
Just the
the
investments.
affiliation currently has a consultant. We are under the belief we can have a more customized work with us and be cheaper is where we feel like we'll be with administration.
Just have one more question, because obviously before this, I just want to make sure. Tell me a little bit about, is it Stump? Like, are they local? Is this like, how does?
They
how
are.
does it fit in?
They are. So in fact, 157C has just moved their insurance over to Stum as well. We work with Brian Stum and Steve Hogan throughout this process here in the last 4 years as advocates. They have several school districts and then also large businesses. I know a couple of gentlemen who own a company who have used them over the last 5 years and have been very happy with their product. Spoke with Superintendent 157C in their process of going out and shopping and moving towards this. As I said, I think it will be in our best interest to go back to bid once everything's put in place. But I know their relationship with Blue Cross Blue Shield because going through 4 and 5 years ago, they brought them right to the table. And that's the most important thing is for our seamless transition with Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Once that's in place, then, you know, we'll continue to, you know, evaluate where we're at. But in terms of administrative fees, they will be less than what we're paying now. And they will upfront all their percentages, so we will be able to shop that at that time. Brad, anything to add there? I know we've met with them a couple different times.
Is that something that we need to go out to bid before we engage with stuff?
No, I would not want to make this move without knowing exactly who we're making this move with. At least that would be my recommendation. To go into, when we're making this move, it needs to be seamless, it needs to work, the administrative piece has to work. If it doesn't, not only the cost, but you have a lot of disgruntled employees, and I wouldn't want to take that risk not knowing exactly who we're working with moving through this process in terms of their response time and where they would go. That would be my opinion. You know, if the board directs, no, do this first, then we'll have to regroup a little bit, set a time structure together to go out to bid. But it wouldn't be my recommendation. Brad, you can add to that. You have more experience doing this than I do.
No, well, first off, you know, because the degree is exempt from bidding because of the knowledge and understanding.
That's what I was
of the degree.
kind of getting at.
So,
Maybe I didn't ask it.
so it's, right.
It was me.
So we're in our legal right to go ahead and do that. We have met with them several times. They've done a lot of help with us. They already know our district. Quite honestly, if we were trying to go ahead and go out to bid and all of that, we'd be in a tight timeline to get that done. You know, we need to hit the ground running and get things moving with this whole thing. We need to first work out with the cooperative, making sure that's gonna go. But yes, I totally agree with Dr. Tingley. They've proven in the past that they're in our best interest, and I feel comfortable with moving ahead with them.
Do we then enter into a contract with them?
Yes. And we'll bring that back here for board approval.
Yeah, that would be
once-
brought back once we, first step is to notify the cooperative, and then we'll have basically monthly steps from here on out until we're able to withdraw.
So the final point of clarification was asking, so we approve this letter, are we approving Stum as indirectly endorsing them? Well, they just both said that they gotta be part of this transition.
Go ahead.
Right, so
First,
here's-
that's why I can write the letter.
Right, but they're not gonna come back to us and say, okay, now you guys gotta pick a consultant.
No, so what we'd like is you approve the letter, we'll send the letter, get the letter to the cooperative. That's first step. Second step, I'll sit down, negotiate a contract with Stum Insurance. I'll bring that back for board approval. and we'll just kind of bring.
So at the risk of transparency, the reason I'm asking is Stum is my insurance provider at the organization that I run. So it's not that they're unknown to me.
Didn't know that.
I know. Well, I didn't realize that that's where we were going tonight, otherwise I'd asked you before. So if we're going to do that, I mean, my vote is to do this, but I'm looking, should I abstain because of potential conflict?
I think we're approving the letter right now. I think we have to
Okay,
come
that's all I'm
back,
asking.
I think we should come back with the contract, and if it, I don't know if it makes sense if people view it, if people want to ask questions, if maybe we have a representative.
We
from
will
there.
have them here today.
I'm a
Because
fan,
I-
obviously, in a
If
private
you
sector
have to abstain from that
situation, we
vote,
use them. I just didn't want to have that come back and then somebody say, well, there's why it was in there.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a preliminary
Okay, that's all I'm
letter.
asking. Yeah, but the risk
That's a
is-
good question.
Okay.
Very good.
I think we gotta get that's number one.
Yeah, so I think we need, because you're asking by October 1st, we'll have the answers to these questions.
Correct.
And then we can move it forward. So I think
Hopefully
that
we'll
was-
have, we will have heard back from the cooperative by our next board meeting.
We will, for
So-
sure.
The Stum questions were proprietary, so I
Right.
apologize. but-
No, no, very good.
That's fine. It's kind of along the lines that hopefully.
Is there anything further? If not, I'm looking for a motion to approve the notice of our intent to withdraw from the Lincoln Way Area Affiliation Participating School District Trust as presented.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. There's no further discussion. Open the vote, please.
Vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.